Hello everyone. We are live again with the new class of Bootcamp. Today we are going to continue the steps we were covering in our previous class. So we'll move to the next steps. But before that, Sarjar, you want to add something?
Yes, I just wanted to say that uh, AWS landscape, the way they are doing development is incredible. What they do is try out a number of different solutions. We all know cloud formation was the base solution uh, for this infrastructure as code. But they have developed three tools. One is Amplify. I think their target market, Amplify's target market is developers who basically do not have a in-depth understanding of uh, AWS, but they want to work on AWS technologies to amplify with their target market. Uh, Something like Netlify tools. Something like Netlify tools.
Yes.
Then other is SAM, which that target market is purely serverless people who want to deploy. And the good thing about that is that in SAM you can also do local deployment of Lambda functions. But that is SAM is basically pitted against serverless.com tools. They are competitive to serverless.com. And in the last reinvent, they also created a third thing which is called Proton, which they are saying it is going to target basically serverless Lambda functions as well as containers in different ways, for example, Kubernetes and all the rest of the stuff. So that I don't understand what is the exact target market of Proton, but basically for deploying containers. Then there is CDK, which we had adopted as our teaching and development tool. It has the most breadth, and Zeeshan, we love it because
Yes.
developers we have to don't have to learn a new language, and with TypeScript you get compile time errors as well. So therefore, today, but some of these tools in combination with CDK are quite helpful. Varis is going to start with Amplify, and we will go from there.
Cool. Thank you so much. So let me just quickly revise what we did in the last class. So in the last class, first of all, we learned how to use DynamoDB inside Lambda functions. And then we also saw how to use AppSync on your client side using Apollo client. So today we are going to see how to use AppSync on the client side, but not using Apollo client, using Amplify. Now the question is, what is Amplify? So I think Amplify is a tool or a framework that does not only allow you to make it does not only allow you to develop your backend using AWS services, but it also allows you to integrate it with front end using its own native front end libraries. But the thing is that we are not going to do anything on backend using Amplify because it's not good enough. CDK is far better, far more superior. So we're going to do everything on the backend using CDK. But we can use the Amplify's front-end libraries to connect our backend with our front end, and it actually works. Even if your backend is implemented in CDK, you can still use front-end libraries of Amplify. So let me share my screen.
Baris, I would like to add here that Amplify means a number of different things.
Yep.
One is Amplify CLI, that is command line interface. And the other is Amplify libraries that you can use with your clients, like Amplify library for AppSync and so on. So therefore, Amplify, and it also means other things, but these are the two main things. Amplify CLI, command line interface, and the libraries which you can use on the client side. I have read reviews that the libraries provided by Amplify, there is generally a positive review by most of the developers. People are not that happy with Amplify CLI. Anyway, we don't believe in CLI. We believe in writing code for everything. Infrastructure as code. So you can, Varish, now continue. Sorry for interrupting.
Okay, no problem. So this is the documentation page. Like Sergio said, we have libraries, we have CLI in it. Then this is the new feature. It's called Amplify Admin Ui. I haven't used it. I'm not sure what it is. But these are the few implementations that Amplify offers. And these are like end-to-end implementations for people who don't want to like write their infrastructure as code. These are very simple to use. So, but we are not going to do anything on the back end using Amplify. We're just going to use the libraries. So, okay, so let's get started with today's step. So today's step is step 6. And let me repeat again. We're going to use Amplify to run AppSync queries and mutations on Gatsby. So the backend that we're going to use is going to be the same that we used in step 5. So I'm just going to quickly go through it because we have seen this exact piece of code in quite detail in the last few classes. So in the backend, we have, let me just zoom in. So in the backend, first of all, we have an AppSync, which is connected to your Lambda function. And Lambda function is doing CRUD operation on DynamoDB. And for that, we have some resolvers. We have a get to do, add to do, delete to do, and update to do. So that's all we have in the backend. So we have an AppSync that is doing CRUD operations on a DynamoDB through a Lambda function. So the idea is to use this on your front end using Amplify. So I've already initialized Gatsby Hello World project because my PC is too slow. So first of all, you will need to install an Amplify library. It's called Amplify. Yes. Okay, so while it's installing, let's start with the coding. So the first step you need to do is you need to create a configuration file that you need in every Amplify project. So I'm going to create it manually now, but I'm also going to show you how you can get a ready-made file. So I'm going to name it AWS-exports.js. So you can name it anything, but I think this is the conventional name that everyone uses. And what you put in this file comes from the README file of this step. I'm going to go through all these steps later, but this is what you need to copy and paste in your config file. So you can see we have few. Let me just zoom in. So you can see we have few parameters over here, and these parameters allow me to connect my AppSync that I define in my backend that I've already deployed with my front end. So you see, I'll have to add the region of my project. Then you have to add the endpoint of your GraphQL that comes from your console. So this is the AppSync that I deployed from my backend. So if I go to the settings, this is the URL. You just have to copy it and paste it over here. And then we have the AppSync region. This is US East 1 as well. And the authentication type is API key because that's what we define in our backend in the CDK. And then we have API key. That's it. That's all you have to do in the configuration file. Now, we have done this manually. Like if you're lazy and you don't want to write anything manually, what you can do is you can actually go to the console, go over here, and you can download it from here. And everything is going to be configured in it. You won't have to write anything. You won't have to copy paste anything. So this is one way of doing it. I'll just show you how does it look. So you can see it has everything in it already. So you can just copy paste this file, but I'm just gonna stick to the one that I made for now. So okay, now this is the configuration file. This is done. Now we need to. Let me see if my library has installed. Oh. Wait, I think I'm writing the wrong name. Oh, okay, it's AWS-Amplify, not Amplify-AWS. Anyways, so now what we have to do is we need to import okay, let's make this a TSX file. And let's wait for the, oh, it's going to take a while. Anyways, so to configure your amplifier, you can actually use amplify.configure, and then you have to import your configuration file in here. Okay. And then this takes this configuration file as an input. This is okay for now. If I just have one page, it's going to work fine. But let's say if I have 2 or more or like 20 pages, and I would have to write this line again and again on every page, which doesn't really make sense and it's not really efficient. So what we can do is we can add this line in a wrap root element, just like we did in our Apollo client example. So let's make a wrap root element. Put a new folder. Let's just copy paste the imports. Export, import, and so here we're gonna configure our file. And then we're gonna return what we're doing over here is that we're saying, okay, we are making a new component and we're wrapping the entire Gatsby project, which is this element inside that element. And we're saying, okay, configure, and we're also configuring our amplifier in this element. So this means that it's going to be configured for every page and every component in our Gatsby project. And this gets configured at the build time, right? So, and the next step is to export this file in Gatsby-browser.js. Export default as and we have to also export it in the SSR, gatsby-ssr.js. Now that's it. We're done with the configuration. Now we can remove this from here. Now it's going to work on every page, so we don't need to mention it separately. Now let's start running our queries and mutations. So first of all, I'm going to import API from.
Varis, can you please increase font size or zoom in?
Okay. Is it better now?
Yes, bit more.
Bit more. Okay. Now.
Okay, fine.
Okay. Now we can actually start using queries and mutations using this that we imported from our library. So in here, so first of all, I'm gonna define my. So let me just see the schema of the backend first, because I don't remember it. Okay, so let's first run this query, get to do's. Okay, so let's first define it. It's outputting a to do. Okay. Get to do's. Query to do's. Get to do's, and it's giving out ID, title, and done. Okay, ID, title, done. Now we have defined our query. Now we have to run it. Now to run the query, I'm just gonna. It's not as easy as a Apollo client because we had hooks in it. I'm gonna make a async function first because the fetching of query is an asynchronous task. So fetch to do's. Make it async. And here I'm gonna use this thing here. So constant data equals to await API dot, and then you use GraphQL function that takes an object, and in that object you mention the query that you want to run, and our query name is get to do's. So that's it. Now we should also put this in a try and catch block in case it runs an error. So log the error, and then we can also console log the data that we're receiving, and that's pretty much it. And let's see if it works or not. My PC hanged last time at this stage. Let's hope it doesn't happen again. I have my fingers crossed. Okay.
Which command was that
Oh,
you started just?
sorry.
Which was the command you just ran?
Gatsby develop.
Gatsby.
Yeah, I just figured out I never ran this function that is actually querying the query, so I'm just gonna run it here. It's called fetch to do's. Yeah, I think it's stuck again.
It's building the project, right?
Yeah, it is. It's saying building development bundle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes it takes time.
Should I try running it again? Oh, okay, it's done. Finally. So we should be able to see some queries. Oh, okay, we're getting an error. Queries in time. Okay. I think let me just see what am I doing wrong. I must have made a mistake over here. So I'm just gonna put this from the repo and let's try again. Get to do is not defined. Get to use. I think we'll have to wait 5 minutes again now. Okay, it's done. Okay, so it's working now. We don't have any data in our DynamoDB, that's why it's showing an empty array. So the problem was in this definition over here, I might have made some mistake.
Could you also zoom in the browser
okay, sure.
also?
So how do I zoom in the console? Oh, okay. Yeah, okay.
Control place on the.
Yep. So you can see we have brought some data, but it's an empty array because we haven't added anything to it. So let's run mutation as well. Let me just copy it from my repo just to save some time and not make any errors. So let's run this add to do. So for this, we're going to make another function. Constant add to do and it's an async function again, and use try and catch. So in the try, we're going to use data equals to await api.graphql. It's a function that takes an object. So now this is kind of confusing. You always have to write query over here, even if you're using a mutation. I'm not sure why, but that's how it is. And our mutation is add to do. Okay. And then we also have a variable in it. The variable is of the type to do input, which is let me just go to the schema again. So you can see add to do takes an input, which is of to do input, and to do input looks like this. It has 3 fields. So let's make that first. Just gonna make it over here. Yeah. So to do equals to. So ID equals to let's for now just give it a random ID. Middle. Sorry, it's an object. And then there's a done field. That's a boolean, and this goes as an input to the query. So you can also define your inputs over here, variables, and in the variable to do is to do, because our variable, the name of our variable was to do over here. Yep. And then we can use catch e. Now what we can do is we can actually run our fetch to do's function after we make a mutation, so that we can see all the to do's together. So whenever we will run our mutation, we can actually trigger our query. So I'm just gonna write that over here, fetch to do's, run fetch to do's. Okay. Now to run my mutation, I'm just gonna make one button very quickly. I mean, on click, I'm gonna run add to do. Let's see if it works now. Okay. So right now we have an empty area. So if I add to do, we receive some data, and it has one object in it that we just created with this ID and this thing. Now this is how you use AppSync with Amplify. Now you saw that I wrote everything manually over here. This is okay if you only have 1 or 2 or 3 mutations and queries. But if you have a huge project that has many different mutations and queries, and you don't want to write them manually, Amplify can do that automatically for you as well. Now to do that, you need to follow some extra steps. Let me show you how to do that. So I've also mentioned those steps in my repo. Where is that? These are the steps, and you can also find them in the AppSync console. And they have actually said that this is the recommended way to do it. I'm not sure why. I think they are trying to promote Amplify, or I think, well, I'm not sure, because I don't think this is this should be the recommended way, because it adds a lot more stuff to your project that you don't really want. Anyways, let's see how does it work. So the first step is to install Amplify CLI, which I've already installed in my computer.
Varish, you will have to increase the zoom.
Sorry. Yeah, so the first step is to install the Amplify CLI, which I have already installed on my computer. And so this is the first step. The second step is to configure your Amplify. You can do that by writing Amplify configure. I'm not going to go through all the steps because I've already done it, but it's very simple and straightforward. You can do it in no time. And then
but if you already have done AWS configure, then you do not have to worry about this.
Oh, okay, right, okay, cool. But the main step is to use this command in the root folder of your project. So in the root folder, I'm going to run this command, amplify init. Now it's going to ask you a few questions. I'm not sure if you can see it or not. It's asking for the name. And it's asking for your editor. I'm going to use Visual Studio Code. Then it asks for the language, React, directory, build directory is public in Gatsby, build command is Gatsby, build, develop. It's gonna do a bit of loading. So what it does is it actually adds some configuration to your project and then also uploads that configuration to its cloud so that it can keep track of your application. So that's what it's doing right now. Now, once this is done, what we can do is, if I go back to the console, Amplify console, AppSync console, you can actually run this command. And what this would do is this would actually import all your queries and mutations in a very nice way in your project. And you won't have to write them manually. So it can be very useful if you have a lot of mutations and queries. And in case you decide to change your queries and mutations on the back end, you can actually run this command then to update it on your front end. So let me show you how to do it. It's going to take a while. So it's asking me if I want to use an AWS profile. I just chose the default profile. And now it's going to do some configuration and it's going to upload it on the cloud. So this command that I told you, this part is going to be same for everyone, but this part is going to be different for everyone. I think this is going to be your AppSync ID that you're going to run after API ID. Okay, now it's done. Now we can run this command and let's see what happens. And I've actually written all these steps in the repo. So it's getting our API details, then it's gonna grab the mutations and queries from your schema, and it's gonna import it in our project. So it's asking me a few questions. They're quite straightforward. You just mostly have to press enter on everyone. Just keep everything default, and now it's done. So you can see it actually made a new folder over here in my source. It's called GraphQL, and it has all my mutations and queries written in it. So this can be quite useful, and when I have this, I won't have to write these manually. I can just delete them from here, and I can just import them from the GraphQL folder. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. That's how you use AppSync with Amplify on your front end. Yep, I'm done. Sir, I'm done.
Okay.
Yep.
Just now what we are going to do is the main explanation done by the Waris. So we build over and above it how we'll be using the subscriptions, the one we have discussed. If we want to have a real-time communication, we want to create a channel or a call, a WebSocket, so that you can keep receiving the data and it's connected to your server. So whatever updates you have done on the server, you want clients to receive that, understand that. So for that, we have to use the subscription, something kind of a WebSocket, or in case of GraphQL provides us a third property called subscription. We have seen queries, mutations, but we have not seen subscriptions. So with AppSync and Amplify, it's become quite easy for us to implement what you call subscription. So we'll start looking into this. Let me share my screen first.
I just like to add that
Yes.
I think this is one of the most important functionalities of GraphQL. And AppSync provides us a very easy way to do subscription, scalable subscription. Previously, I used to use Firebase for this, which was a non-standard solution. But with GraphQL, we can use subscriptions for real-time updates. Just to reiterate, in REST APIs or query and mutation APIs, GraphQL APIs, what the client sends a request and the server responds. But the problem with it is that we do not know what has been updated on the server. In subscriptions, what will happen is that whatever changes on the server, it is updated on the client side in real time. That is tremendous power. And AWS is providing this in a scalable way, which provides us a lot of functionality, and we will be able to develop real-time applications comparatively very easily. Zeeshan, over to you.
Okay, so first thing first, what I'm going to do is, as we have seen, the server, the Lambda function, the mutation we have created, as Waris also showed us. So I'll be using the same server I have created in our previous classes. So you don't have to worry about those. I'll just show you what the server is and what are the data over there. And we have discussed this in our previous classes. So that's the exactly same server we are going to use. Our Lambda function, the delete product, get product,
Zeeshan,
pick product.
which server are you talking about? This thing is done in our previous steps.
Yes, let me show the step number.
I think it was step 4.
When we when we done step number 04. So
And
with step number
now we are going to move towards which step?
7.
Okay.
So in step 4, we have learned how we can create the Lambda function as an AppSync data source and connect it with the DynamoDB. And in step 3, we also saw in a complete detail in step 3 and step 4, we saw that how we create Lambda function as a data source and then create a query and a mutation with this and store data into the DynamoDB. So we have done in our step 3 and step 4, and we have done examples in quite detail. So I'm going to use that server so that we just focus on the subscription part or the client side part. This has been done in our previous classes. So I'll just show you the stack what we created in our previous classes. So it will remains the same. So I guess font is quite bearable. So that's the GraphQL API, the main AppSync construct we create in our CDK. The Lambda function, the handler of Lambda function, then we connect it to the data source, then we created the product table. Name it anything. I was creating multiple names, so I just name it a product again. Then we given the access to the function, then we created the environment variable and created the few resolver query, product list, mutations, add product and delete product. That's what we have created in a stack. And then we saw we created the schema. This our schema, which is called the welcome get product list. Then as we Waris also showed us that we want to add something, so we have to create an object. So product input, so that will be input and it will return a product. That's the simple. And if you want to use the delete product, so that's the available from our previous examples. Not exactly this. The repo has the some additional code which is related to do. This is what I have created in our previous when I was teaching step 3 and 4. So that's the simple step functionality which we have already learned quite a lot. You just have to deploy this functionality, which also I have already done, as we do not have to spend time on it. So that's already deployed. I'll just go and npm run build and just deploy it. deploy. So it will deploy our infrastructure, our stack, and it will create the app on the here as a stack, and it will also give us an AppSync, which is also already available to us. So let me just that's our basic example, and that's the product list. So this is also which we saw in our step 3 and 4. So we have already the data for few products which is being done. So this is the AppSync code. We have query, we have mutation, and we can create mutation. So we have seen this. So that's our basic server, and then you can deploy it with the CDK deploy. Now what we need is a client which what is just displayed as example of it. So what I did is I also created the basic Gatsby structure, which we have done quite many times during the learning of Gatsby and e-commerce examples. So I'm not going to do that. So that's the basic Gatsby example. After that, what we saw is what is run a command amplify init. So it will just set up your init. I have already done this as well in our code because that's the prerequisite of our step. So what it will do is it will create this amplify folder, and it has few configurations and nothing else. So it just connect your application. So you just have to call amplify init, and these examples are already, these steps are already mentioned over here. That's what you need to do at the very first time. This is the very first step. Once you are done, you need to call amplify init. This command should be in every project, every client side project which you will be creating with the amplify. So we'll call the amplify init. So it will create a cloud formation stack for you with the amplify init. Once done, then you need to call the amplify add code gen. So amplify add, basically amplify, what amplify did is it has many a thing. So whatever you want to add or make a part of your amplify project, let's say you want to host this website, so you will call amplify add hosting, so it will host your application to CloudFront. So all these things are done. So what I'm going to do is I'll just let me show you the code first. There is nothing. The basic page is complete empty, and you don't have to do anything inside it. I'll just call this command, and we need to provide the ID for our, that's what we saw a moment ago. So that's the app ID. You can copy from here, or as Waris mentioned, it's available also here. Okay. Now that's what Waris mentioned us, that what it will do is it will fetch all the API. It will ask few questions. Do you want to generate in JavaScript or TypeScript? Let's select TypeScript. What will be the path you want to do? So this will be the default steps, all in all. Just at the step of you want to select TypeScript or JavaScript, I selected the TypeScript. Otherwise, everything was default. So what it will do is it will create a GraphQL folder as what is showed a moment ago. It has mutation, it has delete, it has query. So whatever we had in our schema, which we done CDK deploy, which we done with the CDK deploy. So this schema creates the AppSync app. It creates the our stack for cloud formation, and then with Amplify, what we are trying to do is we have set up the basic structure, which is just create a simple Gatsby app, then call Amplify init. So it will make it the Amplify app. Then you need to call Amplify add code gen. So it's basically says to generate a code related to the this ID. So it's an AppSync, so it will generate the codes, and now we can see what it has generated, mutation and the query, and that's the API. So it, the benefit of it is if you have a 10, 20 or 30 mutations and queries and subscriptions, it will generate the code for everything. You do not have to worry about this. AWS export, that's what our GraphQL query is. So it's also generated automatically. We do not have to worry about it. Then root element, I just created the empty root element. We need to specify AWS, oh sorry, Amplify configure, and then I need to provide this AWS mobile property. So these configurations works for this property. So that's the web root element which we need to create, and we have done quite many times in our previous classes. So that's why I have did it initially, so we do not have to worry about this. That's the basic step, and that's the hello world. So if I go and run this application, I'll call Amplify serve. So Amplify, when we were learning the Netlify, we were practicing the Netlify. What we were doing is we were using the Netlify to run our app, using Netlify to publish our app, using the Netlify. So it exactly the I believe it's the competitor of Netlify, but it has more functionalities related to the Netlify. So it has many things. So what I can do is Amplify serve, and it will run this client side application at the local. And how did it know that it needs to be Gatsby built? As Waris has also mentioned, that's why I skipped that step. Amplify init. When you call the Amplify init, it asks you a lot of things. It asks for the project name. It asks which is the build command. It asks which is the run command. So when you do that, it runs that. Okay, so localhost. That's our hello world. Now what we can do is we have this AWS configured. In the index page, we need to call our first query, and then we need to see how we can call it further. So what I'll do is I'll create a div. Let's say welcome. Let's call the first query so we understand how it's working. When we click the welcome, we need to call our GraphQL query, so it talk to the GraphQL server and AppSync server and return us our data. Now, as we have seen all these things previously with the Apollo. So what we need to do is we need to create a query, and then with the query we were using the Apollo client, and then we were creating use query construct, and then we receive a query. In this case, in case of AWS Amplify, the Amplify created the mutation and queries for us. We do not have to create these queries. So that's the welcome query we already have. What we need to do is just const data equals to await API dot GraphQL. Where does API come from? That's come from AWS Amplify. So as Varis mentioned, basically the problem is I do not want to repeat everything that's which we have done in today's. So that's why I am just repeating all those things that we have seen this. We need to install AWS Amplify, and then in the import we call access the API object and API.GraphQL. That's the simplest way the Amplify provided us. Instead of creating using use query separately for mutation, you have to call use mutation in case of GraphQL Apollo. In this case of Amplify, you just have to call API.GraphQL. Inside that, it's exactly similar to query, exactly similar for the mutation and even for subscription. So we'll just call the query column and the name of your query. So my query is welcome. I need to import that query. GraphQL queries. So welcome, get product list. We'll call mutation as well. So we'll see mutation. Here we'll pass just welcome. So it's nothing but just a query which will return us a string and nothing else. And I'll show this console. That's what I always forget. Await should be in async. Okay, so we're done. Now when I'll press the welcome button, it returns us welcome DynamoDB. So when I press this button, it calls this GraphQL query, and where this query comes from, here. So we have this welcome query, and this connect to our AppSync. How it connects to? We have mentioned this is our endpoint of GraphQL. This is our key of our GraphQL on the AppSync. So it connects to our AppSync, which is deployed over here. The query is deployed over here, and as we have created the Lambda function, so let's see our server again, just to reconcile everything. So when we send this welcome query from the client, it comes here. We have the Lambda function, and inside the Lambda function, we have this implementation, which manage the if we have a welcome, so return the welcome dynamo. So that's Lambda function returns us the data. When we call the add product from the client, so this is the implementation of add product, which we have seen in our previous classes as well. It will add the product into the DynamoDB. So that's why. So it calls the query on the AppSync, and AppSync send this GraphQL query to our AWS Lambda. AWS Lambda return us whatever we return from AWS Lambda, it will be displayed over here. So that's the cycle which we see, and that's connecting everything, which in previous classes we were just seeing server. Now what we need to do is we need to add the subscription. Let me just add the mutation as well. So subscription will definitely need mutation as well. So I'll just create a mutation and then we can. So for mutation, I just need follow the same add product. Await API.GraphQL will remain the same. For query, I have to provide the add product query inside our mutation. So this is the add product query, and it accepts the product as an input. So add product, and whenever we want to provide input, so we need to provide inside the variable. We have seen it in Apollo as well and in the previous classes. So it's the standard that whenever you provide the input to the GraphQL, it's inside the variables property. It's kind of a standardized. So what we need to provide is, that's what we need to understand. We need a product property which has a few objects which is mentioned inside our server. That we need a product input which should have name and price properties. So what I'm going to do is I'll call the product name, let's say t-shirt price 24. That's the add product, and once it's done, let me name it because there are too many t-shirts in my database. So I'll call it 123 so that I can distinguish it to show you. Okay, so it's done and it's rebuilt again because it's this exactly like it's connected with Gatsby. So whatever changes I did, it's already being loaded, and I just need to go to the console. My product is loaded, and I'll click on the add. Before that, let me show you the DynamoDB. It has 13 items. The last item is t-shirt one, so that you guys can connect to it. Add product. After add product, so it says product is being added. It's been added. Okay, so let's go to the DynamoDB, refresh it. Now it has 14 items, and the latest one is t-shirt 123, which we have just created. So you can see this key 3784. So that's what we have. So we have added the product. Now our basic implementation is done. What we need to do is we need to add the subscription. For subscription, that's what really we need to start with. So for subscription, I'm going to create a type subscription. And we need to call, name it on add product, or whatever the subscription name we want to. Let's say I'm saying on add product. Okay. So then what we need to do, if we need to pass any something, or if we want to receive something. So I'll be actually receiving the product. And the important part is what AWS did is, that's very interesting. So for that, it's also exists in our steps. So you just have to follow those steps and okay, that's not there. Let me show you here. So you can follow this link, this article, subscription article, and it gives you the complete detail, which already exists in our previous examples as well. So the important point for the subscription is, because of which becomes quite simple. Is AWS Subscribe. So what it does is basically AWS has given us some functionality that with the subscription we create the AWS Subscribe. That's why the Amplify AppSync quite gel quite well, because you create this subscription and you just have to call the subscription. You don't have to worry about anything else. Just provide this AWS Subscribe, and you mention which mutation whenever some particular mutation works, I want to update my, I want to run this subscription, so you need to mention this. So let's say, let me copy this. On add product, that's the normal. Then AWS Subscribe, which mutation? So I'm saying that add product mutations, and it's an array, so that means you can provide the comma, and you can also give delete product here. So that means whenever add products is being called, so from client, I'll call the add product mutation, server will get updated, and then server will send, AppSync will send us a subscription. So it will call our add product functionality, and we'll receive product. Why? Because we are receiving this and it has a product. So at this moment, I'm just, yes.
Are you talking about two different clients? The first client will send a ad product, and the second client will get the ad product subscription. Is
At
that
this
correct?
moment, I'll be using single client, but whatever client will subscribe to this mutation, uh, if this mutation, particular mutation, add product mutation executes, whoever subscribe to this subscription will receive that subscription. So it will be 2 client, 3 client, 4 client. That's not the problem. So whoever we subscribe to it will receive the update. So that's my name, add product. I'm expecting a product, which is this, as a return. And when this runs, and this subscription executes, so whenever the add product mutation successful, when add product mutation works, then it calls a subscription. So it will directly receive to us. That's the simple change on our server, the our infrastructure code implementation. That's the only change on our. We do not have to add anything in Lambda function. We do not have to anything in our stack. No resolver, nothing. That's the beauty. Just
So therefore, Zeeshan, if
yes.
you cannot have a subscription to a query because it does not change data on the database on the server side, you can only have subscriptions to the add subscriptions to the mutations.
Yeah, basically, I haven't tried with the query, but it's AWS Subscribe. It says mutation, so it must be the queries as well. I believe so. So I have not tested it, but I believe so. It should work like this.
But it doesn't make sense because nothing has changed.
Yeah, basically the query is only fetching the data. It's not updating. So it's obviously not make sense. But the mutation actually changed. So I have not tested it. That's why I've said might be work. Okay, so that's the only change or code you need to add in our server side implementation, and whatever mutation you want to work with it, you can do it. So, okay, so now what I have to do is for the server, I have to deploy the server again. So you can see inside the queries. At this moment, we have query and mutation, nothing else. Now we will, once we are deployed, we will have subscription here as well. CDK deploy. This article exists in this repository. You must follow. We have seen these steps in our previous classes, so you can review them, and this will be very helpful. This article is very helpful to learn. Oh, the beauty of AppSync interface is it also gives us a listener for the subscription as well. So I'll just show you once it is deployed. You can listen subscription over here. So you do not have to go any. If you just want to test your libraries and queries, you just don't have to do anything. Just come to this interface and it do everything for you. So that's another important part of an AppSync. Once you are used to it, you won't go for any GraphQL library or service. AppSync will eat everything, I guess. Okay, so the deployment of a stack is done. I'll just refresh the page and you can see subscription over here. Now what I can do is, let me just empty this screen and click. That's the ad product I have. Now I'll create same interface in a second window just to show you the quality. Here I have a subscription. I'll call name, ID, price, and I'll click on it. Subscribe to one mutation. Now it will keep running. You do not have to go for the client to test it. It will keep running. And in the second interface, what I'll do is I'll call add product, name, price. I'll say call it one, price should be 25, and returns name, ID, and price. That's the mutation. It will update my database, and when it's successful, it will also update over here as well. So it's keep running, so it's keep listening. Press this, it updates over here, and you can see you have received the subscription as well, and it is still running, so you have to stop it. So if I'll add another product, you
So
see testing.
Zeeshan, basically, it is tracking on the AppSync level, not on the database level.
Yeah, it's tracking. It's on the AppSync level. So whenever AppSync receive a mutation, AppSync returns the subscription. So AppSync is managing. That's why I was saying that once you work with the AppSync, you will not go for any GraphQL library because it does everything for you. Okay, so that's we have seen at the server. Now what we need to do is we need to call it from our client. Let me just stop it for a while. And on the client side, what we have to do is we have because our code only have where it is mutation and query, it does not have subscription, so we have to call, as was mentioned, amplify codegen. Why it is not working? Okay, anyways. So what it will do is it will update the changes, what the changes we have done, and it updated the schema and the APIs. And let's see if we have updated. Yes, we have subscription.ts now, and it has given us the query. So these query, as Waris mentioned, that you can write these queries yourself, but there'll be 100 or 20 or 30 queries. So instead of writing again and again, and if you made some changes at the query in the server, you want to update them on the client, so it's good for us to just call with the codegen, and it will update the query for us, and we will be done. So that's the subscription we have. Not, we do not have to do anything else. APIs, that's in this we have another object. We are not using this directly at this moment. At the client side, what we have to do is we need to keep running the subscription. So what I'll do is I'll call the use effect, and here, as I mentioned, API.GraphQL query for mutation and query as well, exactly similar for the what you say uh, subscription. So I'll call API.GraphQL, then query, and in the query I have to provide this subscription. So first import it from hmm, on add product. Just import this query from this file and provide this query on add product. So that's the call. That's the way you call the subscription any query. Then because it's a subscription, what you do is dot subscribe. This subscribe requires a function. It should be inside the property next. So we are passing an object. It should have a property name next, and next should have a function. So we need to provide the function, and it function accepts the parameter. So whatever the data we will receive on the subscription, that will available here, and we can console.log the data. It will be you must provide in use effect square bracket, so it's just run for the once. It will register this subscription, and it will keep running as long as your browser is running. And whenever we will add product from this interface, it will go to the server. AppSync will receive the mutation, and once AppSync done with the mutation, AppSync will call the subscription. So we'll receive the update on the client. Yes, so it's done. Let me start the server. Amplify serve. It's starting the server. Meanwhile, I'll just start the subscription again. So when we'll add data from the client, we need to understand that subscription should be coming on all the client who are listening. So I'm starting this subscription. So it's listening to it. Server client is ready. So start. Okay. So now once I'll click on the add product, it will do this because subscription is already registered. So the mutation will go to the server, and then AppSync will call the subscription. Add product. We receive the data and subscription as well. So we receive the data inside this value, and we also, as you can see here, t-shirt 123. If I'll press it again, so whenever there is a change in mutation, there will be a call of a mutation. So as many as client are listen and subscribe to your subscription, once the mutation gets updated, gets called, it will call all the will send the request to all the subscriptions.
Therefore, Zeeshan, it basically means that when you are adding a product, in this case,
Yes.
to a mutation, you should not update the UI directly, but you should
Yep.
update the UI in the using the subscription.
It depends. If you are using as a real-time database, then it's a good idea. Otherwise, you will be receiving once the mutation is done, you receive response from mutation as well. Whatever the data you called back, so you can update the UI with this data as well. But the subscription is more of a uh, is a real-time update. So if I am receiving the same data, then do not use this subscription. But whenever I add some product, I want everyone to know, then we'll be using the subscription.
No, but what I'm saying is that if you are adding the subscription, for example, in chat, so what you will do is, if you are writing a chat, sending a message, you should do it in subscription, because everyone then you won't have to use two kinds of logic.
Yes, I agree. Yes, in case of in case of chat or live, some real-time responses, it's you are right.
Because just to reiterate, if somebody did not understand, there can be two kind of cases. In one case, you are sending something to the mutation. In other case, somebody else is listening to that subscription to the mutation. So therefore, what I'm saying is that if you are creating that mutation, you should also listen in the subscription and update the UI from that subscription, because then you do not have to use the second kind of logic. Only anything changes, you do it, or anybody else does it. Your UI changes using the subscription.
Yes, I agree. Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so that's it. I just want to reiterate, because we have skipped the in both of examples today, we have skipped the part of a server. So I just want to reiterate that we have done all these things in our previous classes in step 3 and 4. So the complete server was exactly same. There were no change except for this subscription on the server code, which we have added the schema. That's the only change we did for the server. For the client, you need to use any client. For example, if you want to use with the React, or if you want to with the Angular, or if you want to use with the Gatsby and React should consider as a one, because Amplify asks for the React, Amplify does not ask for the Gatsby. So create your project with the Gatsby, the sample starter project, then call Amplify init. Amplify init makes your project Amplify project, as we have done with the Netlify. Netlify init creates the Netlify file inside your project, exactly similar to this Amplify folder creates for us. Amplify creates this folder for us, so it makes your project. It asks for which project you are using, which type of framework you are using. We'll select the React, or we'll select, because Gatsby is not there, so we'll select React. And it will ask what is the build command. So you have to type Gatsby build. Then it will ask what is the start command. You will have write Gatsby develop. So then your app becomes in Netlify. Then you will, as in our case, at this moment we were learning to connect Amplify with GraphQL AppSync. So for that we will call the Amplify add code gen ID, and then the ID of a AppSync app. So it will generate all the code, queries, and basically that's the query is the most important. All the mutation and queries and subscription will generated by the AWS AppSync, and AWS export. So it will have the detail, the GraphQL endpoint, your region, if it's an API key type of authentication, and the API key. These both are from AppSync. And when you provide the ID of inside the AWS Amplify code gen, then it generates this. Once you are done with it, then you can call these is in a very simple way, as we have shown you. Create a root so that Amplify configure works. So it configures your application, and then inside the app, it's quite simple. Just you need to use the query, the uh, auto-generated query. Do not change these queries, because if you have auto-generated it, then do not make a change because it will update it. Then just call api.graphql, which is provided by Amplify, and you are good to go. So that's the basically.
Zeeshan, one last question
Yes.
for you and Varis. In cases where the database updates the primary key, creates the primary key, if you add a product, the ID is generated on the database. What will happen then?
Nothing. That's exactly something.
But the thing is, AppSync, how will AppSync know that what will be the ID?
ID of a product object.
Yes.
Basically, there is AppSync is returning the data, whatever the Lambda function is returning. So AppSync does not have. Let me show. I just need to show this so that you. Basically, in the Lambda function, I'm returning an object. So whatever object I'm returning, AppSync is accepting that object. So if I'm returning, adding a product and returning a user, so AppSync does not have to worry about that. Object must match to the schema, that whatever I'm returning, it should match to this type of object. So if it has ID, name, and price, so that's
therefore
the.
you will extract it from the database and show it, send it back.
Yeah, basically that's it.
I think I can add one. If you can add that ID in a variable, then you can show
the
it.
object we receive in data, it contains that all the information. So it's in an object. Once we add the data inside the table, once we add the object inside the table, it returns that particular document to us after adding. So we'll have this ID as well. So you do not have to worry about. I believe you do not have to worry about this.
Because I was thinking more, if we don't use DynamoDB, and let's say you are using PhonaDB instead of DynamoDB, so therefore it will work seamlessly, because the interface is the Lambda function. Am I right,
yes,
Varis?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks a lot.
You're right. Yep.
Thank you so much. And I think AWS has done a marvelous job with AppSync, because Firebase is very complicated. When you start writing, I have done a big project with Firebase. It was very tough.
Yes.
And
so basically, that's what I was saying, that I'm saying today thrice that AppSync, given once you are working with the AppSync, you might not need any GraphQL library.
I had about 3 or 4 developers working with me on Firebase project. What used to happen is that all the queries would have to be written by me, because an average developer, I'm also a below average developer, but I work hard when I am stuck somewhere. So the average developer was not able to do it. Therefore, the whole code of synchronizing in real time had to be done by me myself. The other developer were not able to do it. So therefore, this one is easy if you are extending basically mutations.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, everyone. See you guys. We have completed which step, Zeeshan, today?
Step 7.
So therefore, we will start with step 8 next time in the next class. Thank you so much, Varis. Thank you so much, Zeeshan Hanif, from all the students. And see you next time. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
Okay. Bye-bye.